In the year 1516, a single pearl emerged from the depths of the ocean, so perfect, so radiant, that it was called the Pearl of the World. But this was no ordinary gem. It carried the weight of power, greed, and destiny. Kings fought for it, merchants lied for it, empires bled for its shine. What began as a symbol of beauty soon became a curse, a mirror reflecting humanity's endless hunger for control. Between 1516 and 1527, the pearl would pass through royal hands, spark wars, and change the course of history forever. In the early years of the 16th century, when empires rose and oceans whispered of uncharted worlds, a discovery unlike any other captured the imagination of kings and merchants alike. It was called the Pearl of the World. Born in the warm waters of the South Sea, it shimmered with a radiance so pure that those who beheld it claimed to see both heaven and damnation reflected in its glow. No jewel before or after ever carried such mystique. The pearl seemed alive, its surface glowing faintly even in darkness, its perfection beyond the reach of mortal craft. But beauty in those times was never innocent. It was a lure, a trap that pulled men into tides of greed, ambition, and ruin. The story of the Pearl of the World is not merely about treasure. It is about the human spirit, tested and consumed by its own desires. In 1516, Spanish explorers sailing through the vast expanse of the Pacific stumbled upon the rich pearl fisheries of the Gulf of Panama. These waters hid secrets older than empire. Indigenous divers, risking their lives in the depths, surfaced with treasures that glowed like fragments of the moon. Among them was one pearl unlike any other. It was enormous, almost perfectly round, and shone with an iridescent fire that seemed to change with every breath of light. When the Spaniards saw it, they believed it was a sign from God, proof that divine favor had chosen their empire to rule both land and sea. They named it the Pearl of the World. The discovery ignited a storm of greed. Word of the pearl reached the court of King Charles II of Spain, later known as Emperor Charles V of the Holy Roman Empire. To him, it was not just a jewel, but a symbol of Spain's divine right to conquer. The crown demanded it. Ships were dispatched, soldiers sent, and native divers enslaved in pursuit of more like it. Each day, dozens risked their lives, lungs bursting in the depths, their hands bleeding as they pried shells from coral beds. But no other pearl ever matched the perfection of that first one. The Pearl of the World became an obsession, a legend that haunted the ambitions of conquerors and collectors for generations. As it passed from hand to hand, its story deepened. The first governor of Panama, Vasco Núñez de Balboa, had heard whispers of the gem even before its discovery. It was said to have been gifted by the sea gods to a native queen. When it was seized, misfortune followed swiftly. Those who touched it often met with betrayal, disease, or death. Sailors drowned, ships vanished in storms, and governors fell to political intrigue. Yet none of this diminished its allure. The greater the tragedy, the more sacred the pearl became in the eyes of men who mistook its curse for divine challenge. To own it was to defy fate itself. By 1519, the pearl found its way into the hands of Hernán Cortés, the ruthless Spanish conquistador who had conquered the Aztec Empire. To him, the Pearl of the World was the ultimate symbol of triumph, a sign that he was chosen by Providence. He presented it to his beloved, Doña Juana de Zúñiga, as a token of eternal love and conquest. It gleamed upon her breast at royal gatherings, drawing gasps from nobles and jealousy from queens. Poets wrote verses about it. Painters tried to capture its light but failed, for its color seemed to change with every emotion it evoked, white in peace, golden in desire, crimson in blood. The years between 1516 and 1527 saw Europe and the New World gripped by transformation. The Reformation was rising in the north, the Renaissance was reaching its height, and across the oceans, entire civilizations were being swallowed by conquest. In this shifting world, the Pearl of the World became a mirror reflecting the era's contradictions: beauty born of suffering, wealth drawn from blood. It stood at the crossroads of wonder and sin. Every empire wanted it. Every ruler feared losing it. Rumors claimed it was cursed by the spirits of the deep, that each owner would pay a price equal to their greed. Yet the more danger surrounded it, the more men desired it. Such is the nature of power. It does not deter the hungry. It invites them closer. In royal courts, the pearl was more than a treasure. It was a weapon. Its possession could elevate a noble house, sway alliances, or seal a marriage between empires. When Charles V eventually received word that Cortés had the gem, he demanded it as tribute. The conquistador hesitated, torn between loyalty and vanity. For a time, the pearl vanished from records, as though swallowed again by the sea. Some say it was hidden away, others that it was stolen and smuggled through the Caribbean under moonlight. Each story added to its myth, until the pearl of the world became more than a jewel. It was a legend woven into the very fabric of the 16th century, whispering through corridors of power and over the graves of those who sought it. In 1527, the Spanish court saw its glory once more. The pearl was finally presented to Queen Isabella of Portugal. Bride of Emperor Charles V, the chroniclers described the moment with awe. When she entered the hall wearing it, nobles fell silent. It seemed as though the light of a new empire radiated from her, illuminating Spain's dominion over the seas. Yet even then, some whispered of omens. Within a decade, the empire that reached its zenith under Charles would face rebellion, financial collapse, and unending wars. The pearl remained a silent witness to every triumph and every tragedy. The story of the Pearl of the World is the story of humanity's eternal conflict between creation and destruction. It was a masterpiece of nature, but in human hands it became a catalyst of chaos. It revealed the truth that beauty, when claimed by greed, loses its grace. The pearl's perfection was never meant to be owned. It was meant to be admired, to remind mankind of what lies beyond reach. Yet in every century, men have repeated the same error, mistaking possession for purpose, control for meaning. From the hands of explorers to emperors, from the depths of the ocean to the heights of royal courts, the pearl of the world traveled as both gift and curse, reflecting the endless hunger that drives civilization forward and tears it apart. It shone not just with light, but with the reflection of every soul that gazed upon it, each seeing what they desired most: power, beauty, immortality, and losing themselves in its glow. The discovery of the Pearl of the World did not just mark the finding of a rare gem. It awakened a new age of conquest and desire that would reshape the destinies of men and nations. When the Spanish explorers first brought news of the miraculous pearl back to the Old World, Europe was already trembling beneath waves of ambition and transformation. The Renaissance had taught men to dream beyond the boundaries of faith and tradition, and the New World promised boundless wealth for those daring enough to seize it. In that climate of hunger, the pearl became the perfect symbol, pure, untamed, and radiant with promise. It was as if nature herself had offered a divine token to the conquerors, challenging them to prove their worth in a world still half covered in mystery. But the gift was not innocent. Every man who sought it soon learned that the light which dazzles also blinds. In Spain, where the echoes of the Reconquista had barely faded, the news of the pearl's discovery spread like sacred fire. The court of young King Charles was alive with talk of gold, new lands, and the power of God manifesting through conquest. The pearl was seen as a celestial omen, a sign that heaven favored the Spanish crown. Churchmen preached that the oceans were yielding their treasures in divine tribute to the faith, while merchants calculated profits and soldiers sharpened their swords. Across every port city, from Seville to Cadiz, the dream of glory shimmered like the surface of the sea. Yet beneath that dream lurked the same shadows that have haunted mankind since the dawn of greed, envy, deceit, and the lust for possession. What had been a discovery of beauty was already becoming a story of domination. The divers who first brought up the Pearl of the World were nameless men of the sea, indigenous people forced into servitude under the flag of empire. For them, the pearl was no miracle but a curse. Each descent into the dark waters carried the risk of death. Sharks circled the reefs, currents pulled bodies into oblivion, and many never resurfaced. Yet the demands of the Spanish overseers grew harsher with every success. More pearls, larger pearls, finer pearls. The command echoed daily through the humid air. The men obeyed until their bodies gave out, driven by whips and fear. Their suffering was the unseen cost of Europe's splendor. Every jewel that glimmered in a royal court was bought with invisible blood, and none more than the pearl of the world. When the gem finally reached the hands of the conquistadors, it was hailed as the greatest treasure ever taken from the sea. It glowed with a strange inner fire, as though it contained both dawn and dusk within its smooth, flawless skin. Hernán Cortés, whose campaigns had reduced the Aztec Empire to ash and gold, saw in the pearl a reflection of his own destiny. To him, it was not simply wealth, it was validation. He had conquered nations. Now he held the ocean's crown in his grasp. Chroniclers say he guarded it more fiercely than his weapons, displaying it only before the most trusted eyes. He believed, as the pearl passed through the circles of power, its legend deepened. Those who looked upon it spoke of visions. Some saw paradise, others saw ruin. The priests claimed it was a test of faith, a mirror revealing the soul of whoever possessed it. To the righteous, it would bring fortune. To the corrupt, it would bring despair. Such words only increased its mystery. The nobility fought to own it, each believing they could master its charm, and in doing so master their fate. But no man can own what was born of the sea. Its perfection defied control, and its glow seemed to dim in the hands of those who sought to claim it. The pearl thrived in myth more than in possession. Its power lay not in its value, but in what men believed it could give them: immortality, legitimacy, and divine right. Throughout Europe, whispers of the pearl of the world stirred the imagination of poets and painters. Artists tried to capture its essence in their works, but none succeeded. Its color was said to change with the light, from silver to gold to a faint blush of crimson, like a living thing that breathed with the tides. The mystics saw it as an embodiment of the cosmos, the union of heaven and earth. Philosophers debated its meaning, comparing it to the alchemical stone of perfection. To some, it represented divine creation. To others, it symbolized humanity's downfall through excess and pride. But while the scholars argued, the merchants of Seville and Lisbon made fortunes trading pearls from the New World, turning sacred beauty into a currency of empire. The more they profited, the more the original pearl's legend grew, until it transcended trade and entered myth. In distant palaces, queens wore pearls as symbols of purity and power, unaware of the cries that still echoed from the waters where they were born. The pearl of the world had become both relic and warning. Its story moved from truth to legend, from treasure to omen. Those who possessed it often met untimely ends: betrayals, shipwrecks, sudden illness. Each tragedy fed the myth of its curse, yet none deterred the next seeker. Such is the paradox of desire. The more danger it promises, the more irresistible it becomes. The pearl became a magnet for ambition, a quiet force shaping destinies from behind the veil of beauty. Its light seduced kings and crushed the humble, its silence more powerful than the roar of war. By the mid-1520s, Spain stood at the height of its might. The treasures of the Americas flowed endlessly into its coffers. Gold, silver, and jewels adorned cathedrals and thrones alike. Yet even amid this ocean of riches, the pearl of the world retained its singular aura. It was not the largest, nor even the rarest gem by measure, but it carried something no other object possessed: a story that bridged myth and history. It embodied the idea that one perfect thing could hold the spirit of an entire age. And in that idea lay the truth of empire itself, that men would destroy everything around them in pursuit of something they could never truly keep. The pearl's radiance illuminated both the glory and the decay of its era. It reflected the beauty of discovery and the cruelty of conquest, the brilliance of human creativity and the darkness of human hunger. Every gleam of its surface was a contradiction, every shimmer a reminder that perfection in human hands turns to corruption. The divers who died for it, the conquistadors who killed for it, the monarchs who displayed it, all were bound by the same illusion that they could possess eternity through a single object. But eternity cannot be owned. It can only be glimpsed in moments, like light on the surface of water. The pearl of the world gave such a glimpse, and that was both its gift and its curse. Its legends spread across continents, carried by sailors' songs and royal whispers, a testament to the fact that even the purest beauty can become the most dangerous treasure when placed in the heart of man. The pearl had traveled far from the sea that birthed it. By the time it reached Europe, it had already passed through hands stained with salt, sweat, and blood. It was whispered that the ocean itself had guarded it for centuries, waiting for the moment humanity would claim it, and in doing so, unleash its curse. When it arrived at the court of Emperor Charles V, it was displayed not as a jewel, but as a symbol of dominion, proof that Spain's empire stretched from the depths of the Pacific to the heart of Europe. The court gasped at its brilliance, and poets compared its glow to the moon reflected in holy water. But among the courtiers, one man stared at it in silence, sensing that its beauty hid something deeper, a story written in pain. The emperor, proud of the treasures brought by his conquistadors, ordered that the pearl be placed in the royal treasury, where only the most sacred relics and the crown jewels were kept. Yet soon after, whispers began to spread. Servants claimed that at night, when the treasury was empty and silent, the pearl would faintly pulse with light, as if it were breathing. Guards reported hearing sounds of the sea, distant waves and faint cries from within the locked room. The priests dismissed it as imagination, but the rumors grew stronger. To many, the pearl of the world was no longer a gift from heaven. It was a living witness to human greed, carrying within it the souls of those who had died to bring it forth. One stormy night in 1527, a fire broke out in the lower quarters of the royal palace. Chaos spread as the flames devoured the wooden beams and tapestries. Amid the confusion, the royal treasury was nearly consumed, and when the smoke cleared, many jewels were lost or blackened, but the pearl of the world was gone. No one could explain how a gem locked behind iron doors had vanished. Some claimed it was stolen by a thief who fled into the night. Others whispered that the sea had come for what was its own. The emperor ordered a kingdom-wide search. Ports, markets, and ships were inspected. But the pearl had disappeared as mysteriously as it had arrived. Months later, in the port city of Cadiz, a merchant brought a gem to a jeweler, claiming he had bought it from a dying sailor. When the box was opened, the light that filled the room silenced everyone present. It was unmistakable, the pearl of the world, but the merchant's hands shook as he spoke of its previous owner. The sailor, he said, had been part of an expedition that sank during a storm near the Azores. Before dying, he confessed that the pearl had been taken from the royal treasury by a man obsessed with its power, a man who claimed that as long as he carried it, no storm could drown him. Yet the sea had claimed his ship and crew, leaving only the pearl adrift on the waves. The merchant, terrified by the story, sold it cheaply and refused to speak of it again. The pearl eventually found its way into the hands of a wealthy noblewoman, Lady Catalina de Mendoza, known for her fascination with rare treasures. She wore it proudly at royal banquets, where its glow drew all eyes toward her. Yet as months passed, her health began to fade. Servants whispered that she had become obsessed with the pearl, locking herself in her chamber for hours, staring into its surface as if she could see visions inside it. Some said she heard voices calling from within. Others claimed she could no longer sleep without holding it. One morning, her maid found her lifeless on the floor, the pearl clutched tightly in her hand. The physician declared it a sudden illness, but those who saw her eyes swore they looked like someone who had seen the sea for the last time. After her death, the pearl was returned to the royal treasury, sealed in a reliquary and hidden away from public sight. Yet its legend only grew stronger. Sailors carried tales of it across the oceans, claiming that those who gazed upon it too long would dream of the sea dragging them under. It became a myth that haunted every port where Spanish ships anchored. The more men tried to forget it, the more its story returned, reshaped by each generation, sometimes as a relic of divine beauty, sometimes as a cursed jewel born of sin. But always it remained the same, a mirror reflecting what men desired most and feared most. Years turned into decades. The empire that had once ruled the seas began to crumble under wars, debt, and rebellion. The treasures of the New World, once symbols of divine favor, had become reminders of endless suffering. In time, the pearl of the world vanished again from the records, lost to history as Spain's power faded. Some said it was stolen by a monk who cast it into the ocean to break its curse. Others believed it still lay hidden in the vaults of a forgotten monastery, its glow waiting to be seen again. Yet no one could ever prove its fate. Centuries later, in the archives of Seville, a historian uncovered a fragment of an old ledger describing a pearl of extraordinary size that had been auctioned in Venice under mysterious circumstances. The record ended abruptly, but the last note beside it read, "Its light was as before, soft as dawn, but restless, as if it longed for the sea." No further trace was ever found. Whether the pearl truly existed, or whether it had dissolved back into the waters from which it came, no one could say. But the story endured, passed through time like the echo of a wave. It became more than a tale of treasure. It became a parable about the nature of beauty and the hunger it awakens in the hearts of men. And somewhere in the depths of the ocean, where sunlight barely touches the sand, the sea waits, guarding its secrets, perhaps still whispering the name of the pearl of the world.